What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Fast. Today, let's get started with Dricus Du Plessis has world's respect for Alex Pereira. Despite being potential rivals, Dricus Du Plessis heaped praise on fellow UFC champion Alex Pereira. Light heavyweight champion Pereira and Du Plessis expressed interest in fighting each other, with Pereira even willing to drop back down to middleweight. Whether or not they ever fight, Du Plessis couldn't help but laud Pereira for his achievements. I think he is one of the greatest combat athletes to ever live. He is a phenomenal athlete. To go in a short period of time from a different sport and not just a different sport, kickboxing, which is not a great base for MMA. It helps, but if that's the only thing you know, not a great base if you're going to go up against these wrestling guys. I mean, multiple titles at the highest level, comes in a short period of time and became middleweight champion, goes to light heavyweight, becomes champion, and being one of the biggest names, like always ready to fight. I think probably the most achieved combat sports athlete the world's ever seen. Chael Sonnen confident Khamzat Chimaev is UFC 312 title fight backup. Dricus Du Plessis defends his middleweight title against Strickland in a rematch, which headlines Saturday's event at Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney. With UFC 311 losing its main event just one day prior, Sonnen doubts the promotion would risk another title fight headliner being jeopardized. I think Chimaev's the backup fighter. I don't believe that Chimaev is just the #1 contender. I don't believe that the proximity of this fight is something that you would not book Chimaev, who allegedly has Western travel issues. I don't think you would do that without bringing him. I'm confident that Chimaev will be there. I'm confident he will be in attendance. So why, if you're flying him out, would you not put him on the scale the day before? I'm asking. I don't know that answer. Michael Bisping echoes Daniel Cormier's concern of Alex Pereira cornering Strickland. With Pereira a month out from his title defense against Magomed Ankalaev in the UFC 313 main event on March 8th, Bisping agrees with Cormier that cornering Strickland will serve as a big distraction. Daniel thinks it's a bad idea. I've got a theory on why he's saying that. The reality is, for Alex Pereira, flying to the other side of the world a few weeks before his title fight against Magomed Ankalaev, that a lot of people think is the toughest matchup for him at 205, and I'll probably agree with that as well. They think it's a bad idea. Daniel Cormier said once you go to Australia, you got to deal with jet lag, different food. The training regimen won't be the same, and all the rest of it. Shara Magomedov details slew of health issues after UFC Saudi Arabia loss to Michael Page. Magomedov suffered his first career loss when he dropped a unanimous decision to Michael Page this past Saturday at ANB Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I've never felt this sick in the cage. My legs were gone, my arms felt weak, and I've got a lot of health issues I don't want to reveal. It was a whole bunch of problems that affected my performance. My mind was there, but my body was off. I was feeling sick after throwing just a few punches, so I needed a break. My legs were gone. Page was asked about Magomedov, claiming he was compromised during their fight. If I was to give any advice moving forward, if you accept the fight knowing that you have had anything prior to the fight, then the result is the result. If you win, you can say what you want. If you lose, just keep it to yourself. It just looks, maybe later down the line you can say you had a few issues. But directly afterward, he could be completely factual, but it just comes across wrong. It comes across as an excuse. That would be my only advice for him. Strickland shares uplifting message with Israel Adesanya after UFC Saudi Arabia loss. Believe it or not, Strickland actually had something nice to say about fellow former UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya, and his words seemed genuine. At the end of the day, Izzy's made his legacy. He made his legacy. If you want to continue to fight, continue to fight. But you've done what you wanted to do. You don't really have to prove anything. You're a lasting name in the sport. For Adesanya, that was the start of his current 3-fight skid, which includes a loss to Du Plessis and this past Saturday to Imavov. Chael Sonnen confirms Colby Covington's next opponent will likely be Gilbert Burns. Colby Covington famously went on hiatus following his loss to Leon Edwards in late 2023, but he stepped up on short notice to face Joaquin Buckley. Sadly for the former interim UFC welterweight champion, he was dominated in his short notice return. However, while the wrestler has largely been inactive in the second half of his career, he quickly revealed plans for a turnaround. Just weeks following his loss to Buckley, Colby Covington called for a fight with former UFC title challenger Gilbert Burns. He doesn't need to fight again, but will he likely fight again? Yes. Will he likely fight against Gilbert Burns? That's also a yes. For his part, Gilbert Burns is also struggling at the moment. The Brazilian is currently riding a 3-fight losing streak, last suffering a unanimous decision loss to Sean Brady last September. Leon Edwards targets Belal Muhammad rematch. Leon Edwards is set to return to the octagon in the main event of UFC London on March 22nd against Jack Della Maddalena. It's Edwards' first fight since he lost his title to Muhammad, and he believes with a win, he should get a title shot. I feel like after beating Jack, definitely I can get a title shot. He's ranked 5 or 4 in the world, and in the welterweight division right now, there are not a lot of people barking for a title shot. I think Belal is fighting Shavkat hopefully April or May. After that, there is no one else for the title apart from me. I go out there March 22, put on a great performance. I can't see why not. Edwards also believes he would fare much better in a rematch with Muhammad if the fight is at a normal time and not at 5 in the morning. But before he can get a title shot, Edwards will need to beat Della Maddalena on March 22nd. Jiri Prochazka reveals who he wants next following recent UFC 311 knockout win. The former champion dropped Hill several times en route to a third-round knockout win, helping him get back on the right track. Post-fight, Prochazka called for a trilogy bout with Pereira. However, given the Brazilian's current booking opposite Magomed Ankalaev, the former champion won't be facing Pereira anytime soon. With Alex, I would like to fight him in my next opponent, but right now, I don't like to push it if the UFC, in negotiations about that, wants to prove me against a different opponent. Like I said, I see 3 guys there who's from the top 5 that I'd like to challenge because I don't want to fight other guys. There is Alex, there is Magomed, and third one is we spoke about Blachowicz. He showed a really nice performance against Ankalaev and against Alex too. So one of these 3 for me because I like to stand. I know I'm going to the top right now. Just give me some opponent, and I want to prove that I'm the best, and show that I'm the champion. UFC featherweight champion Ilia Topuria sees 2 viable options for his next fight. Topuria has goals of becoming a 2-division champion and has been vocal about his desire to move up to lightweight to challenge Islam Makhachev. This is something that I want to do. The UFC knows that. But at the end of the day, this is something that the UFC decide. They know how to run the business. They have a lot of experience. So if they tell me they want me to keep defending the belt in the 145-pound division, maybe I will do that. But if they let me go up to 155, I will do that also and be very glad. Dana White talked about how big it would be for Tom Aspinall if he beat Jon Jones. Speaking to Piers Morgan, White shared his honest thoughts on Aspinall's future in the UFC. According to the UFC chief, Aspinall has an opportunity to take his career to incredible heights if he could prove that he has what it takes to take Jones out, like how he has been boasting about it. The problem in this business is, you have guys who say a lot of things publicly, but behind the curtains don't mean it. You know, don't really want these fights. Tom Aspinall is not that guy. Tom Aspinall wants to fight all the best in the world, and I love that. Aspinall has been very good. We're gonna find out, though, with the Jon Jones fight, a fight like that for a young, talented heavyweight. If he can win, if he can beat Jon Jones, it's life-changing. White was then asked to single out who are the most dangerous fighters in the current UFC roster. For the UFC boss, Jones is still at the top of that category. Jon Jones is the best ever, the best of all the time, but we have tons of guys that are dangerous. Islam, who is now the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world.